be a bit much. Once is already, that can already be a lot.
I mean, I will be rewatching the session later, but not at the same time twice.
Yeah, no, that's a bit much. Okay, you ready to get started?
Yeah, yeah,
All right, cool. So, yes, the last time I was just checking was like early last year.
yeah.
Um,
I was coming back like from a really long hiatus, like from 2016 or 17 or so,
sure.
and
Is
then
your
after
phone on
that
your desk,
session,
or because I can hear like a lot?
oh, okay, let
I
me
don't know if.
take it away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know if that's your phone. Yeah, it's
yeah,
buzzing through the
it
whole
was, it
thing.
was.
So popular. No, please continue. Yep.
So after that, after our session, I played for like 9, 10 months. Maybe I stopped like a couple of weeks or so, but I
Mm-hmm.
was continuously playing.
Okay.
And basically, the reason of this session is both re-catching up, not as much since I was playing last year,
Mm-hmm.
but also I was already when I quote unquote quitted by the end of last year. I already needed a catch up session because I was able to implement a lot of the things I learned new with your session, with your content, with everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I needed like a recheck that everything is going on the right track, that I'm not doing something really off. On top of that, I wanted to know what's going on because I've seen small dramas, big dramas going on, things changing, roadmaps, things, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to know how to think a couple of days ahead of time, not only getting
Mm-hmm.
into the game, doing my dailies, getting the coins of the current event, getting a couple of symbols, maybe upgrading some mules with the event, and getting
Mm-hmm.
out. So I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to know more or less what's going on.
Right. And when you say a couple of days, you mean more like a couple of months, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, a lot
At
of
least a couple of
days.
weeks.
Yeah, at least weeks. Yeah. Well, yeah, because I always do say like this is a marathon, not a sprint, right? This game, a lot of it is, it's it is understandable that people are like, do I want to invest my time in this game for the long period? And then there was a lot of insecurity because of the things that were happening or that were implemented in Korea that seemed very specifically just trying to kick everyone out that jumped into Reboot like a year and a half ago ish over there. And then try
Yeah,
to get those people, they were getting hard carry, they're progressing super fast, so they cut into like the carrying with the red dots and everything. You're familiar with that whole system?
oh yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
was here when
Yeah,
it
you're still
came.
playing. Yeah. So that was basically one of the big steps that they did to try to slow down, to try to make the level of progression between the servers more similar, so that their non-reboot servers wouldn't just like dry out and everyone would move over to reboot essentially.
Hmm.
So, but that still didn't they just slowed it down a little bit, but it didn't really stop it. So one of the other things that they did last summer is just cut the meso, to equalize the meso basically. So they put in a
Yeah, that
yeah,
that was
they put in a
that sounded
cap
weird to me.
for mobbing on how much they could get base amount, like before multiplication and everything from the equips, and then cut all the meso from the crystals and stuff and from the monsters by 80%, and then started to put in more systems, and then they got rid of Ursus, and they put in more systems, or they're starting to put in more systems that will hopefully bring more meso to kind of like fill that up, but um, that can also be more easily controlled and require more playtime and potentially some money as well. So like pay to win stuff came into play, so that they could get rid of like basically Chinese bot farms and Chinese hacker accounts that are just like mass trying to ruin their economy the whole time, right? So
Okay,
that was like the
and how?
guise under which they were doing that. So with the big memo, the last one that we got from Inkwell, which is like a original developer of MapleStory who's still like working at Nexon, that he is, from what I understand, basically in a position at the same level as Wonky, and that he is going to be having a more active role in determining whether things should come to GMS or not, because we have a completely different. Well, for us, it's already too late. Like, our economy was already ruined like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
So everyone has already moved to Reboot, and that's why our heroic servers are the most populated servers, and so
Like
for
70
us it would
to
be
30 or so, right?
sorry.
Something like that. I saw a video of someone saying that it was like 70 to 30 here and the other way around there.
Yeah, that's what Nero was saying. There's a bunch of different metrics you can look at. I don't know if anyone knows exactly the number except for someone who works at Nexon. I can look at the hours played. I wouldn't be surprised if it was more like 75-25 or even like 80-20. But of course, I am
somewhere around
only
there.
engaging. Yeah. But it's definitely a completely different balance than there. Yeah. So so at the end of the day, there's two big decisions, right? There's the decision like what do you feel like the game should be balanced like, and then you're talking about how quickly should people progress through the game in terms of how quickly do people feel connected to the game, how likely are they to make purchases, right? All of that stuff. And but the other thing is like, do you feel like it's fair or something, right? Like that's almost a completely different question. So if something could be better for the game in terms of the balance and the progression and kind of connecting people to the game, which then hopefully leads to purchases, but if that doesn't lead to purchases and it leads to everyone quitting, then it is not better for the game, even though you could have the maths on your side for the balance of the game. But if it makes everyone want to quit because they're used to a certain level of a game for a certain a long period of time, then that's actually bad for the brand or for the company, right? So they've noticed that was going to be really bad for the company, at least for the GMS aspect. So they are not going to be implementing at least those big things that they mentioned in the memo. So mostly the meso cut for the crystals and for the monsters, that kind of stuff. They're not going to be implementing that for GMS. So there will be.
Oh, so both mules can still because that was one of the questions I had here.
Yes.
Because when I quit it, I was working on some boss mules, and
Yeah.
I wanted to know if it was even worth keeping working on them.
Yeah, exactly. So meso cap for mobbing, amount of crystals sold, value from crystals. And mesos from monsters, like all of that, they already said is not going to be changing to what Korea had in an upcoming summer update, in the Dreamer update for GMS. Yeah.
Cool.
So for a lot of people, that was a little bit. On the one hand, it was like yes, no nerf, but on the other hand, it was like okay, now I can plan ahead again. I can know that working on this character and getting arcane gear or superior gear or absolute gear, whatever, for your bossing mule, that you're actually going to be able to keep playing that and keep making the money back. Because if once you have that insecurity, it's not like it's harder to enjoy the game if you don't know if next week all of your investments might have been for nothing, right? So
that was what I was scared about. So
yeah. So in a way, a lot of people are like happy with the news, because no nerf, but also happy because now they can commit time knowing that it's not going to be potentially a waste. So that's kind of the situation we're in right now. So the roadmap showed the current event that just started, the anniversary event, and the Dreamer event, what's roughly going to be in there. So the one, I mean, there's only like two big things, I guess, besides the memo, is that the Angelic Buster rework, according to the regular scheduled release, was supposed to be roughly around the anniversary event. It was like at the same time as the anniversary event for, or about 6 months after, but we get the event a year later. So it was supposed to be around the anniversary event if you keep the same release schedule, but we already had the Beast Tamer rework in Lin from TMS and CMS. So they moved that to the Dreamer update instead. So Beast Tamers have to wait like an extra 5 weeks for their rework. And there's going to be one more special event, they said, for and they're doing a little bit more cooperation events, so like asking for feedback, and you can like write a letter to Nexon, and you can like select who do you think is like the best mascot right now, right? It's like, it seems like a little bit just memes, and it's like little events with little rewards, but they're actually using that data to see like how different are the regions, and should we be using the same icons for the different regions, right? Should we be giving the same update?
Sure.
Should we be, when you make a mini game, who's going to be like the main character in the minigame? If different regions like different characters, then it's like Coca-Cola, right? It's always Coca-Cola, but it doesn't taste exactly the same everywhere. You have different laws, you have different regulations, you have different regions that want different things, you make extra flavors, right? So they're clearly trying to make an effort and showing like we are trying to make sure that the product is still desirable for the consumer. So hopefully that goes together as well with us having a little bit more input and a little bit clearer voice of communication on like where do we want the game to go, and how do we want things to be done.
Of course.
But yeah,
All
that's
right.
still early stages.
Okay, cool. So, okay, that gave me some peace of mind in terms of at least the Smurfs, I mean the mules and all. But I don't know if you'd like to go over the screenshots first, or should I ask you some questions before we jump into those? Because I obviously know that you don't
Yeah.
like getting into this item versus that one before going into the systems, but
Well, we already
I
had
have a
like
couple of
sessions,
things.
right? Yeah, so it's probably
Exactly.
good if you have some questions written down. We can just go over those, and I can at least have them in mind when I go over the screenshots to see where it connects.
Okay. First of all, is there any event? I mean, I already know what's going on with the current event, but is there anything I need to pay extra attention? Like, this is, for example, when the 6-star came out, it was like more valuable than other valuable things. It was
Yeah.
like, okay, this you cannot miss. Is there anything I shouldn't be missing going on or soon to be starting?
This event is it's like a very mellow event. So it's for most anniversary events, they want to appeal to like a very wide audience, and in that, there's typically not. They also don't want to make it too mandatory. So there is definitely some stuff where if you want all of the items and all of the characters, you're like going to be busy all day, every day trying to cap on all your characters. But they've got that special skill. Every single character has got like the explosions. Like within 10 explosions, you max cap out on your leaves. You can do it pretty quickly. So you can put as much pressure on you as you want to. Typically, I think EXP tickets, EXP vouchers, those are... That's typically something I'm looking for because it's a very useful tool in any kind of update to level up a character that is completely unfunded. So it's pretty good to get characters up to 200 or characters up to 210 for level 3 link skills. So that's something I'm looking at. But right now, we got the Dungeon Blast. It seems to take quite a bit of time.
Yeah, like 20
you
minutes took me or something like that.
Yeah, we did like 15 minutes. I think we can do it a little bit faster, but not that much. I think it's always got to be like at least around 10 minutes, I think. And it gives 500 vouchers. So there can be some maths that you're doing as well. So it always comes down to, when you're looking at an event, if there's something glaringly that like jumps out at you, like this is, brain dead, like the falling of the acorn or something, right? Like you just do one good run and you can get like a % on a level 280 plus, or like that's like a big juice EXP. That doesn't seem to be the case right now. There's some extra event at the end of the event period where basically you like double the daily reward for like up to 10 times in the last 2 weeks. So then there'll be more value of your time individually. But mostly what I advise people to do is just look at the shops and see which items are in there. And then based on which items are in there, look at how much currency that is. And then translate that to how much pressure should I probably put on myself during the event. So what I'm looking at for my account is I want to make sure that I get as much as possible from the weekly shop. Because, we got Black Flames there, Eternal Flames, and symbols in Arcana, in Grandis. And then there's another shop for Arcana symbols. So for another character, maybe I do that. But for me, mostly like what I'm looking at is the weekly shop. So, but I know I'm going to get my weekly leaves. But I might have to do some math to see what exactly am I buying there and what exactly am I not buying. But
So
there's a lot of cosmetic stuff in this event. So if there's certain cosmetics you really want, then make sure you do enough to get those. But if you're pretty indifferent about cosmetics, and typically anniversary events, the amount of utility is just gotten from making sure you get one character daily login and clock the daily login, and most stuff aside from that is pretty optional.
Yeah, like get your secret symbols, a heart for a mule, and that's it. Okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right. Another elephant in the room for me in my progression is that I'm on a guild that we created way back then, and basically I'm the only one playing. But at the same time, I know this might sound stupid, but I don't want to leave the guild, so I'm playing without the guild value. So I know I'm behind there. I need to make up somewhere else, because I can do guild stuff on my mules and all, but obviously I will not get good guild skills unless I either start adding new people to the guild, which is a community management I don't feel like doing. I'm not playing that much, so I can play like maybe a day, like 1 hour. I log in, I do my stuff, I get out. There will be days where I cannot play. For example, this weekend I have a tournament, so I will not be playing. But then maybe the next one I play 5-6 hours. It will depend.
Yeah, very
So I
regular.
don't want to be managing. Yeah, I don't want to be paying attention to the guild. I am the guild leader at the end, and I don't feel like people are going to be wanting to join a guild that is not consistent. If I want to quit for a month, I will. So yeah, that is in there. So in terms of progression, I know I need to make up for it.
If you're a guild leader as well and you're inactive for a while, then people can like take over the guild after a bit as well. So if that's something you're if that's something you're concerned about, there are varying levels of guilds. Like there are guilds, for example, where it's just like, hey, just join and do culvert, and like that's it. And if you do 100 culvert or you do 5,000 culvert, like that's it. Just join and do culvert, and then they'll just check every Monday, and then just everyone who doesn't do culvert, just you can just mass kick and just boom, and then just add new people. So you can take like a kind of new bullshit, no nonsense approach like that, where you're just very blunt with it, just to save yourself a lot of time. Where you're basically like saying like, hey, if you just like, I'm just trying to get some guild skills. You guys want to get some guild skills? Put some time in. If you're not putting the time in, you don't get guild skills. Like it's that simple. For me, it's I've got layers, you know, with people who are in the community a lot, people are in the Discord a lot, people are in the Twitch chat a lot, and then some names for people who've been around for a long time, and it's hard for me to kick them. So I totally get that sentiment. But if you want to keep, like, what you could also do is maybe transfer leadership to someone, and then have them transfer leadership again to like one of your other characters, for example, so you keep control of the guild, but maybe find a new guild with this character until it picks up or your friends come back or something. There are some options that you could do there. Like this character doesn't have to stay a leader for you to stay a leader, right? Because it is going to hold you back in the sense that if you get to a new area, and alternating G skills will also allow you to train in higher level areas and keep your kill speed, so it helps for training. And then also of course for bossing, like you'll need a lot less funding to be able to put the same amount of damage on bosses and clear speed and that kind of thing, which, you know, efficiency at the end of the day, it's all about fun. But if you're playing and you're playing inefficient, it's always gonna, in some ways, it's gonna hang over your head, and it's not gonna feel like, you know, I could have done the same thing in you know, maybe in 10 minutes less, and I could have enjoyed myself for 10 minutes more with doing something else. That's never gonna, eventually it's gonna weigh on you. So I feel like you do want to think about that in terms of like long term making a choice, whether you just want to, you know, maintain this guild on a different character by like double swapping, because you have to switch to someone who's online, right? So you can't switch to your own character directly. You have to switch through someone else or another account. But yeah, someone can probably help you to do that. Like, it's not a big deal. But also, I don't know, like, is the guild like a level 30 guild? And does it have like a whole bunch of people in it? Or is it really just a friend guild? It's level 10, yeah. So that's also something that's really easy to remake, right? So it's purely like sentimental value at that point. So I think it'd be fine to just maintain it on like a boss mule that you do some bosses with. Maybe like a level 220 or something that you play weekly, so you can make sure that you stay in the loop, and you can make sure that if somebody logs in, you'll be able to see it, right? Because you can check the activity. Mm-hmm. But for your main character, it will be holding you back quite a bit. Unless, you know, you make like you add like other more casual guilds to your alliance, for example, and then you can start communicating more there. Then you won't get the G skills, but at least you'll have contact with more people, so you can maybe, you know, make parties more easily. Just something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. I will take those things into account. Maybe I will do a couple of those. And in terms of systems, the only system I feel like I am not really familiar with is the Hexa stats. I'm just following for the Hexa skills. I'm following a guide on the Ice Lighting Discord server.
Yeah.
And I just do that order blindly. I'm not even gonna attempt to do the math. But the stats are tricky to me. I just don't know what to do there.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of moving parts, right? It's really hard to say like, oh, this is going to be X% final damage, so it fits. Like technically they could do that, but you have a random roll every time, right? So
But how does it work?
So basically you just, well, there's a few layers to it, but I don't think it's worth getting into the super detailed min-max version of it right now, because we only have access to one, and it costs quite a bit of fragments to like make it optimal and like min-max it, whereas then using those fragments instead on the main skills will be guaranteed gains, whereas for this, you know, if you get then a bad roll and you have to redo it, it can get very expensive. So usually what I advise people, especially once you're like more high level Hexa Matrix, do you have the link to the Ice Lightning one? Or I can find it, but it might... Oh, actually I have the
Ice Lightning order of skills?
Yeah, actually wait, I have this. Is this one, right?
Yeah, they added a new one like a couple of days ago where you go... no, I think it is... Yeah, it is not exactly this one, but it is similar. But yeah.
So you've got that one to 9. And now you're going to unlock the other ones, basically. Just get the 11 FD and then work on your origin.
Yeah, the new one is this one. I have it here. I can send it to you on Discord.
Oh yeah. Also created by Ebola. Did he add the... Oh, so he added the stat one, right? So that's this one. The purple...
Oh, okay.
The purple is the stat. Because if you look at the icon of the Hexa stat, you can see that's like that swirl, but it's still gray. But when you unlock it, it turns like purplish.
Oh.
So he added it here. So generally you add, you select main stat for the top one, and then weapon or magic attack, you know, depending on what your class needs for one of the two bottom lines. The two bottom lines are the same. It's very much like your inner ability, but it's like a Hexa inner ability basically, where you get to choose which stats. But then when you level it up, one of the random stats will level up.
You level it. It states that you level it up to 3, up to level 3, right?
Yeah, up to level 3. Yeah. It's basically because the first levels, the stats go evenly, and then past level 5 for individual stats, the stats go up for the top line. But the more the top... basically how it works is you only spend fragments, you don't spend energy, and your top skill will get eventually double the stats of the two bottom ones, but the max a stat can give you is like 2 whole amounts. So if a stat is on the top of one skill and on the bottom of 2 others, and max out in all of those, then it'll give you like the maximum amount of stats that it can possibly give. And eventually we have 6 that will be unlocked, but that might be like 3 or 4 years from now. So I don't think it's too necessary to min-max on it now and dump a lot of fragments into it, unless, you know, this is all maxed out and you've already got some saved up for your next mastery core and everything. Is this including the next mastery core? Is that this one? Or is that a...
When you say mastery core, what do you mean exactly? I'm sorry. Oh,
this
I
one.
see.
Masteries, yeah. Because there's a new mastery core coming out this winter, this summer, right? So it would be good.
Oh, okay.
I assume if it's a new one that he's including the new one. Do you know if that's the new one? Because the icon doesn't look like any of the other ones, right?
I don't know that icon, honestly.
So you got the
It should be
lightning here. That one and that one. And then this one. Yeah, that looks like it's the second mastery core.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe we can double check here. Check the icon. A little bit of research. Make sure we're doing that. Nice.
I mean, if it wasn't because I know the first one is chain lightning, I wouldn't know it was just by looking at the demon.
Oh yeah, this one, like Blizzard 6. That's the one it is.
Oh, okay.
So it's also including the next one already. So that is a good breakdown because it has the stat matrix on it and it has the new one in it. So you also know that, you know, since we don't have the next one and because you can only save up to 20 soul Urda energy, it's probably going to be fine to go a little bit past where this is now. But it also shows you like how once the event comes closer and closer, you might want to start saving for it so that you can start hard committing to it. Yeah, and you'll also see like there's a lot of 9s and 19s and 29s, right? And that's because level 10, level 20, and level 30 are very, very expensive. So usually the stat matrix for, there's a stat hexa for most classes happens like you work on it before you hit those big levels, right? So you work on it a little bit before you go to 19 on your biggest one, and then you work on maxing it before you go for 30 and you go for 20 on the other 2 big ones. So that's why it's positioned like that. And then you get some more FD out of the easier ones, and then you max out, go up to 29. Again, see, you're not going to 30 immediately. You go up to 29 first, and then you get some more damage out of the other ones. And then you see a lot of 19s again, right? Then you see 30, and then you see 20s and 50. And then the last bar to last bar and a half is just like min-maxing typically. So this is also like a good area that you can see where if you start using fragments on another character instead because you want to get a lot of damage there, you'll disproportionately make way more gains in terms of total damage on those characters than to min-max. It's like getting all your skill nodes, you know, in the V matrix, all from level 22 to level 25 or something. Like those last levels.
Sure.
If they were high priority, they would already be 25. So it's just like to min-max the damage, basically.
Okay, and there are some. I think I only have like one V matrix main skill that I haven't leveled, which is Ice Age, up to 25. I mean, so
gotcha.
when it comes to the part where I should be leveling Ice Age on the Hexa Matrix, what is the quote unquote optimal way to have that? Just open a bunch of nodes here and create shards, and since it is the last one, just go for it straight up, or
but it seems
still open.
Yeah. Well, I would just open. I would just craft the skill node specifically. Yeah, because everything else is pretty much maxed, right?
Yeah. The other things I could still level are the common ones.
The Goddess
Maple,
Blessing is. Yeah, Goddess Blessing is good to level, but your boost nodes are all maxed. So once your boost nodes are maxed, it's better to craft skill nodes straight up than to craft node stones, because node stones are like 75% boost nodes. So you're just gonna get 10 shards back when you're investing 35. So it's not efficient.
Okay.
If you're still leveling, that's why I like not leveling the boost nodes too quickly and keep them at like level 20, 21, 22, something like that. So you can keep crafting node stones and keep getting the value out, and then and then bring the skill nodes up a bit more. But because of your more kind of like DPM nature, right? You got a pretty short cooldown on the hyper skill, and you got infinity running. I think the Goddess Blessing will still give you quite a lot of juice as well. But yeah, well, Ice Age isn't that high up in the priority, right? So you can see. Yeah,
it is the last one, most like. I mean, on the on the.
Well, not just the last one, but it's after getting 19 on your Matrix now, and then in your Mastery Core now, and 9 on your Origin, and 9 on your new core that you don't have yet. So by the time you get to this one, there's a good chance you're going to have to work on these other ones before that anyway, right? And save course for that. So it might be still a while until you even get this one to level 1. And then the very next thing after that is to get your Mastery Core to 29, like right after you get to 1. So that's that does mean that it's not that big of a deal to do this one. It's more of a help with mobbing even, right? So if mobbing wise you don't have any trouble, you probably can also skip this one for a little bit. And when people want more damage for bossing, a lot of times they'll look at their origins more, try to get their origins more boosted, so that they can have a easier time finishing off segments in bosses like Kalos is pretty important, because you don't have a super long time to deal your damage there, and you know, once you're out of your burst, and once he's out of Groggy, and when he's unbound, he'll just be teleporting all over the place. It's really hard to confirm your damage, especially if you're looking to hit your key down hyper skill, right? Like, it's very tricky to get all of that damage to confirm unless you are in some kind of immunity, unless he's bound. So that's why a lot of people will be looking at the burst more specifically if you're trying to hit those benchmarks to try to get into those boss parties.
Okay. And in terms of the other systems, I think I know the stuff that there is, but
really quickly, because we started with the Hexa stat, right? So usually it's like stat, you take main stat top, and then weapon or magic attack, and then typically critical damage. Unless you're a high critical damage class, then it's usually boss damage. But they're all pretty close, so once we unlock more of them, we'll probably get the other stats that are still missing. But those are typically the 3 stats that people select. And
so main, then magic, and then probably crit.
Yeah, probably crit. Yeah, and there's so every time you level it up, maybe I can show you mine real quick. So every time you level it up, you see the percentage changes, and then the percentage for the bottom is always the same. Like it just split in half, whatever the difference is. But the higher the top one levels, the more fragments it costs every time to rank it up.
Okay.
So yeah, that's why there's a whole strategy, because you want something to reach level 10. I didn't. But if you reach level 10, then you know at least that stat has like reached its potential for this. But if it doesn't, then you have to start mix and matching with the other ones later. But this stuff is just more important for most of the stuff. At least like these two, and probably one of your... typically one of these is more important. But like the origin and the masteries are definitely have a much bigger impact on your damage. And then this is just typically something like somewhere between level 9 and level 19 is when people start working on this. But I would say just get 1 to 20 and then just kind of go back to this, and then you can always circle back to min-max it, yeah.
And why do you have attack power as your main instead of main stat?
Well, my reasoning was I want mostly stat, so I'm gonna put stat as a secondary stat, because the main one is gonna roll less. So I'll maybe get higher. But I didn't take into account that the number doubles here past level 5, so that eventually, even if it only ended up with a 7, it still would win more than a level 9 here. But like I said, I can always min-max and come back to it later. I don't care about it too much, but yeah, in hindsight, I should have put strength here and should put attack there, yeah. Should have switched them around.
Alright, okay. So, yeah, so the other systems, I kind of know them all in a way that I can work with, but I don't know where to, in my mental map of how important things are and what I should be having at least there present. Maybe not, I don't want to create a list like I need to do this, then this, then this, because then I'm just working and not playing. But at the same time, I want to know if something is way more important than other things. So in terms, those systems for me are right now item progression. I know it is not a system per se, but item progression, Legion, and bossing, because I feel really behind in bossing.
Okay, well, where are you at with bossing now? Like, what have you soloed so far, and what have you done in a party so far?
I solo up to normal slime, and I party for hard lucid. I know I should be able to party for hard will, but back then, before I quit it, I remember jumping into the stream with you, and you helped me a lot to learn will, and it's still hard for me. I don't know why will is so hard for me, but I need to put in more time. I think it is because I feel like I need to put it like a batch of a couple of 3 hours batches to work within it and to get to, because I know when it clicks, it is way easier, and I have the damage. I should have the damage to at least party normal, even party hard.
Yeah.
And
party hardy, yeah. Well, teleport classes don't like will in general, because P3 is pretty difficult to dodge the move patterns. Basically want to ethereal form if you have it, and if you don't have it, you like pray that you hit the right time frame, because even if your ping is just a little bit off, you could have timed it perfectly, but you'll still just get hit and die. So the main thing is just to get to P3 with as many lives as possible. The major thing for will is positioning and timing. The damage is usually not really a problem. It's always just about, like, in P1, he always attacks the way that he faces. In P2, he always attacks whoever he's aggro to. If you're solo, it's very easy, because it's always you. So then if you just attack and teleport behind him, you never get hit by him. You can only get hit by the legs and stuff. So that gives you a lot more time or a lot more things to easily dodge. But if you're in a party, you could be facing it the right side, attacking the left. You could be facing the right side and attacking the right. You just don't know. So a lot of times what I do is look at the timing for the attacks and just up jump over, because that's the one way I know for sure that I'm not going to get pushed back. Or you fight like always in the middle of the map, try to be with your back towards the middle of the map, essentially. So that way, if you get pushed, you always get pushed the long way, so you never get pushed all the way towards the webs. And if you do get pushed, just know that you're inverted. So,
Sure.
Or walk like a little bit. But if you get pushed towards the web and then you walk a little bit, you could walk onto the web. And it's mainly all about just being careful with your movement and maybe over moving a little bit, but always trying to be in the middle of the map, right? For P1, if you're in a corner and he does the tornado through the entire map, it's just never really a good thing. But you have to have the whole party kind of be in sync and be together in the middle of the map. As soon as someone gets hit outside and then he teleports to the outside, now everyone has to deal with the tornado, or everyone has to go into the corner to hit him, and then there's a bunch of legs, and now you can't get behind him because he's in the corner, and then you can't dodge, right? So it becomes a little bit annoying. So if everyone is on the same wavelength, but especially in P1 and also in P2, if everyone has healing fams, there's a lot of stuff that just isn't as scary anymore. But if you're soloing, then yeah, it's easier to control the flow of the boss fight, his positioning, his attacking, but you'll have way less healing coming in, so then you have to also be a lot more careful or be a lot stronger so you're in there not for as long, right? So
yeah,
there's stuff you can practice. I don't know if I showed it last time, but like for Hard Will, there are some little mini games that you can check.
Yeah,
that somebody made.
like a web game, like a web
yeah,
application, right?
There's a pattern. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's like patterns and stuff like that you can always give an attempt. But yeah, a lot of it comes down to like the timing of knowing when you're bursting, especially like with your key down and combining that with a bind, right? Or with the groggy state in P1 right after he gets out of the test, because then he's bound for a little bit. That isn't officially a bind, but he just doesn't do anything for a bit. So it's a good position, a good timing for you to be able to hit your key down skill without any risk of him throwing a bunch of attacks at you. So taking advantage of those good situations. And then typically at the end of P1, before going into P2, it's a good idea to use most of your burst, not your burst, but like your buffs already, right? So that you have everything pushed, so that you don't have to push them in P2, because then it will consume HP and MP, and then it puts you lower. And in the beginning for P2, it still takes a little bit to gather that first moonlight to be able to heal. But they have, I don't know how long you haven't played exactly, but they have, in not too long ago, reduced the reduction for moonlight if you get hit by the little pink purple balls in
and nowadays there are some things I need to go back and remember a lot of things, but I know they changed something to be when you take out the health amount instead of having to time it for the tests.
The health amount?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. If you fail the test. Yeah. So you still have the same thing where it does like an equalizer, but that still is on a timer, but that's not connected to the tests anymore. Like that doesn't trigger the tests at those times. So tests just trigger when he's out of HP on both sides for P1 and for P2 as well. So if someone does die, if you do fail a test, he just heals back half of a bar. So in P1 that means a quarter of both of the bars, and in P2 that means he heals back I think half. But if you have like a full party, it's actually a lot faster to just take out that extra half of the bar than to wait an extra 2 minutes.
Sure.
The downside is, of course, that it could desync if everyone's like on the right pattern to do their burst, and then you might have to do like a bunch of DPM like off burst to try to chunk the extra bar away, and that might be a little bit annoying. But if some people have like some 60-second burst, or you got your lightning barrage is pretty good, right? That's like 25-30 seconds, something like that. Does a nice amount of damage in the corner. So those are like good skills that you can then just slam, and then you'll have them back again once you get to the new phase. Yeah, that. And also they made it take a shorter amount of time in between getting hit by an attack by Will and your moonlight starting to regenerate again. Because everything that hits you pauses your moonlight regeneration. Yeah. But that's a lot shorter of a pause now. So even if you do get hit, it's not as punishing. So that also made the soloing for Hard Will a bit easier for people liberating. But yeah, they also opened up liberation for 2 people, of course. So that makes clearing still take a bit because everyone deals half the damage, but it gives you double the cleansing power, which makes that boss fight a lot more doable.
Okay. All right. You mentioned familiars a lot. I took longer than I expected to get large drop, but I finally got it, and I have
nice, yeah.
infinite amount of ignore enemy defense. I don't have boss or anything like that, but I have like 30, 20, 20 or something like that in my bossing setup.
Yep, I saw. Yep.
And yeah, I'm missing healing familiars though. And I think since I'm addressing wheel, I should be getting back into farming those and maybe trying to get some healing.
Yeah, making uniques is the best way to do that. There's a lot of variants in healing, but most of them only show up in unique. So once you start making uniques now, which you can because you have your large drop, it doesn't make sense to go for any more epics at this point. I mean, they can give minor healing, and they can also give, well, minor. The healing is pretty close together, whether you have large healing or medium healing, they're actually pretty close. But it adds up over time, of course. And there is also boss damage possible in epics, but like mathematically, it's just better to go for uniques now that you have the large drop. And
I have a bunch of epics already sitting in there to get
exactly.
to unique.
Yeah, and you'll see a bunch of healing before you see any boss. But you would do well with boss since you already have so much IED in these. You can very easily replace at least one of them for a boss, which will increase your damage by quite a bit. But until then, you can use these to, to supplement your, like your hyper stats won't need any IED in it. Your Legion grid probably won't need any IED in it, right? So you can have the familiars carry that part. And in a way, the familiars are giving you boss damage now, so that with even, not like a 9.5k Legion, you can still max out or get close to, getting a lot more boss damage and damage from your Legion grid that doesn't need to go into IED for now because of them.
Yeah, but that's another thing I wanted to ask, because I feel like having 3 ignore enemy defense familiars, I should be able to take it out of somewhere else. But at the same time, my ignore enemy defense, my visible one is not all that high. So, I mean, it is high, but it is not within the parameters of the progression grid that I should be aiming for, if that makes sense.
Well, I think I see 96.57 without them here, right?
No, it is with them.
That's with them? Wait, shouldn't that show a yellow number? Oh god, I did this new stat window. Doesn't it show like if you summon them, doesn't the number go up and then...
It stays in white. I tested it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's bad.
Yeah. But
yeah, boss damage stays white as well. Yeah, that's great. Okay. Yeah, although, I mean, there is some extra IED for you in... No, you're good here. Where's the... Because you're very, like, early on stages for the mid-game, right?
Yeah, I'm forever stuck on the mid-game. I was mid-game in 2016, I was mid-game when I came back last year, and with the new age and all, I'm mid-game again, so yeah.
Yeah, if you're ever out of mid-game, it means the mid-game definition hasn't been adjusted properly yet, probably. So I'm, like, forever stuck in late game, yeah. If I ever somehow wander into endgame, it's because...
they're not catching up.
Yeah, because I didn't set it up properly or something. I mean, you're like a post 96, and with your mage one, you get up a little bit more. Where's 9% of 3.4? I gets you pretty close to 97. Yeah, there should be something could get rid of. But I see your Legion grid here. This is your Legion grid for everything that you're using? You're using this for bossing?
Yeah, at the moment I only have one for everything.
Yeah.
I know I should be making one with EXP and all, but since I haven't taken the time to do that. But I should, I mean, now that I got to 6k Legion. So, oh, didn't I? Wait.
Looks like 586 here.
Yeah, I'm not 6k yet. That was the plan before I quit. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, 6k is an extra 5 characters in there, so that makes a big difference really quickly. Yeah.
I'm leveling slowly. I'm basically doing second on like 12 characters now that are 120 something, 130 something. I want to get them to 140 at least. And after that, I will see where I can squeeze some levels. For example, with level potions, I give them to some that I want to get to 200. But yeah, that is why I mentioned that I kind of know what to do when I'm addressing Legion, but how hard should I be addressing Legion? I know since I am like a couple of levels away from 6K, that is valuable. But other than that, when I get to 6K, should I take a break from it? Should I just keep doing that slowly into 8K, and when I'm close again to 8K, push some more? That just seemed logical, but
Yeah,
how
I would never take a break from it. I would just turn it up or turn it down, but never to a 0 or to a 10. I would always keep it like a healthy balance between everything else, right? Always make sure that you're doing it in service of upgrading your character, but not letting it taking away time from playing on your main character, right? It's more like if I want to play like 2 hours a day and I've spent like half an hour of that, like 20 minutes to half an hour of that working on Legion and the rest on my main, that's like a pretty healthy balance. If there's a certain event, maybe it goes up to like 45 minutes on one, an hour and 15 minutes on the other, or even like an hour split. And maybe there's nothing going on and you don't really have anything juicy going on and you just do a day, you just do 2 hours on your main and you do nothing in Legion for a few days out of the week. That's probably fine too. But at the end of the day, it's all about like what you want to do. And if you're in this position, like your Legion seems to me is that you're just doing it in service of making your main character stronger, right?
Yeah, I have another preset that is physical damage based, but it is not optimized for anything. I mean, I only try to optimize it for my main character, and then my Legion went up, and I got more space, and I didn't want to do the calculator thing again, so I just started using things. I know buff duration is important for me. After that, I know critical damage and ignore enemy defense because it is like in the middle there, so I can fill it up a little bit. But I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and I know I can optimize that a little bit because I have a couple of holes here and there that I could be moving things around. But yeah, it feels like a 45-minute thing for like a 2% increase on my things, and I can do the things I already do, and the things I cannot do, I feel like I am more than readjusting my Legion part away, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't like redo your Legion completely when you're like this close to 6K and then you have to redo it again, right? But I would definitely look when you're 6K and you get the extra characters and that I would like sit down and try to optimize it. I'm sure technically the optimization for you would be that you could go into critical damage and fill out buff duration, fill out critical damage, and the rest go towards boss damage and probably get out of IED. Because if it's a smaller clump of IED, like this one where it's 18%, if you take that out, you're still going to be very high on the IED in the stat window. And I would go out of the IED because it's better to have 18% boss in your Legion than to have 18 IED. But when it comes to like having 40% IED versus 40% boss, now that balance shifts towards the IED because it's a bigger clump, right? Because of how it's calculated. Yeah. So as long as you know that you're not going to be maxing out the IED, I'll probably try more to go for boss damage, especially in your situation where you have so much and you have the familiars coming in with the bigger clumps of IED. And maybe, if there is a position, if you do get levels where the hyperstats you're working on, maybe just leave the IED at 10 and walk the other ones more up to 12 and up to 13 a little bit faster by just keeping the IED there at 10. That's also like another possibility. Because you're going to have those familiars for a while. Sure.
I know I will also take out some crit rate when I level my link skills a little bit more and all. So it can go even lower. So I will get more. I mean, my hyper stats can be moved a lot because I have some use on attack and magic damage just because I knew I wasn't gonna level fast enough, so I just threw some at it. So, but yeah, I know I should be resetting it probably when I get a couple of things done. Maybe when I get a couple of levels as well.
Yeah, a few levels probably. Then I would look at it. Yeah, you can redo the crit, get that neatly to 100%, and then get the ID a little bit lower, and then get the other ones all to like 12 to 13. And if you have a mobbing setup as well, right? That one is also important to just review every now and then. But for the other setup you were talking about, don't know if going into EXP is like the most important thing. If you're going to be leveling on characters, like grinding a little bit here and there with events, it'd be a good idea to first distribute towards normal damage and critical damage to make sure that they keep being strong and they can get good rates. And then if they can get good rates, if they can kill everything on the map, then you can go into bonus EXP. But just at 6k, it's probably not a good idea to go into normal damage and into critical damage and into bonus EXP because they're too far away from each other. And then you lose too much damage just connecting the things together.
Yeah.
So then it's better,
good.
I think, to focus on the damage itself. Once you go towards like 7.5 or to 8k, then you can start throwing those in there. But then it's more for like getting characters for 200 to 250, basically, right? Because then if you're already at 8k, you already have mostly level 200s, or you're like finishing off some characters that are like 170 something. But just for every character, have kind of like in your idea, like, is this character a character that I would be okay with playing? And then if there's an event where you get more EXP, then I would consider playing that as part of your, daily routine of doing something for Legion, or
and then,
part of your weekly.
Then when I can bung some others, I will do that on the characters I don't want to play or that I feel. Yeah.
Either that are like not funded at all, so it would take too much effort, right? They're just too far away from their goal. Then just throw potions on there, event EXP, level up potions, like the EXP vouchers, anything like that, because that also saves you from having to fund the characters. If there are characters that you might want to turn into bossing mules, then you can already throw a little bit of funding in there to make the leveling easier, and then also they'll already have a head start towards becoming a bossing mule. So
okay. So what else do I have here? Well, the other thing I have here is I haven't kept the best track of my item progression. I know things I need to be working on, but what I want to walk out of the session with is basically if there's any outliner here, like this item is super behind or something is with a little bit of effort you can catch it up way more. If that is the case, and what is basically the map of progressing the items? What is the next step of the items I currently have? Because I'm entering into the
Star
arcane.
Forcing past 17 and towards 21s and stuff. Yeah,
over 70, but I'm getting into the arcane set. Having trouble with the shoulder, obviously because of Will, but I'm like shoulder and boots away from completing it.
Well, yeah, and if you're completing more boxes, you get completing more bosses. You also get more chances for boxes. Nice Freudian stuff.
Yeah.
And then from the boxes, you can also just pick the shoulders, right? So even if you get the box from Lucid, you can just pick the shoulder from that. So then you don't even need the clears necessarily for Will. That's why it's also, if you have the damage and you want to do more stuff, it's also a good idea to look towards like Sea Gloom in a party, or maybe even Hard Darknell in a party, or Vihela, normal Vihela or Hard Vihela in a party, just to get those clears in and see if you can just get like a blue dot just for a chance of ring box, right, which could be a lot of damage, or for an armor box, because it'll save you a lot of money in the short term. And then once you have the gear, you can always go get to a smaller party to get a higher chance for the pitch before you eventually solo something like that.
How do it? Because I'm kind of afraid of getting into those parties, because first I don't want to, since I'm not taking that much time to really learn everything in deep. I don't feel like getting into a party and messing up people's time. I don't want to waste people's time as well. So I want to, when I do, I want to practice it a little bit. Obviously, my first run in a party will not be perfect.
I would practice normal first, because the mechanics are very similar for all of the bosses. They'll just be like the things that hit you just hit you harder, or there's like extra stuff trying to hit you. But there's the base mechanics for all of the normal C10 bosses and the hard ones is just very similar. So I would practice normal already and just look at the patterns, look at the attacks that they're doing, how long is the delay before he, like Darknell charges up an attack. So a few of the attacks look the same, so you have to find out for yourself, like, what do you look at? Like, one attack, he holds his sword horizontally. That means he's going to do, like, a big swipe. You can duck underneath that one, and it's very far. One of them is where he holds his sword more diagonally. That's just going to be him slashing in front of him. So if you're just a little bit away from him, you can already be safe. But if you get hit, you get smacked back, There's sometimes there's an indicator is in the corner of the map, but for a lot of these boss fights, it's just you want to keep the boss in the middle of the map. But for Vihela, if you're doing like a pickup group, they're probably just going to run into the right corner, which is where the threads won't be able to reach you, and I'll just wait for Vihela to come over and then just like nuke all the damage they have on her and just kill her in one burst and not learn the mechanics at all. And then when a party is not strong enough to do that, then it becomes a shit show.
Okay.
So that's a bad way to learn the boss. But if you're like, you're stuck on, you just want to get it clear quickly, you just want to get a chance for a box, and you don't really care about the quality of the run at all, then that's something that you could end up doing. But yeah, I feel like that's kind of like a last resort for almost the end of the week, and you still want to get your run in. Gloom was made a lot easier because during the darkness mode, when you can't see, they eliminated a bunch of the hazards that can't hit you anymore, so there's a lot less stuff that you have to dodge. But still, in normal, it's also normal, especially like at your level, it's not like, oh, I'm go in and I'm just going to blow it up and I'm not going to learn anything. Like, normal is still going to take a lot of time. Like, Gloom is closed by default, so you have to dodge until he opens up and puts the legs down diagonally, and then you can climb up the legs and hit him. And then you only have time during that time to hit him. And then when he closes up again, he ends with a big laser that sucks you in the middle, so you have to stay away from that. And then after that, there'll be like a few more, bunch more attacks, and then he'll open up again. And then there's extra opens on certain percentages of HP, so that becomes like the next level is like, okay, how hard do I burst here? Can I burst really hard? Can I pop all my buffs? Because I'm going to get a double open, right? It's going to open again right after the open. That means I can still have Infinity running, for example, or Infinity is almost running out, and there's not going to be a second one anyway. Then you might as well just leave Infinity for a little bit, start refreshing it, Don't use a boss UI in the description and say it's practice runs. Yeah, that's another thing you can do, right? I would definitely do normal just a few first times, just to get familiar with like how quick are the attacks, how big are the hitboxes, what did the attacks look like? Is there a banner in the middle, or does it just hit out of nowhere? How big are the hitboxes? Is it going to be, if I fly all the way up, am I still going to get hit? If it's a big vertical attack, or can I just move up a little bit and is it safe, right? Just die to a bunch of things a bunch of times and just figure that out for your movement, what makes sense. And then, yeah, like Chaos said, you can very easily just do practice runs in the boss menu and just be like, practice Sea Gloom or something. And just make sure to communicate clearly, like, hey, nobody knows yet if we're going to be able to clear. Don't pick anyone who's too strong, right? Because it'll put pressure on you, having to fight too hard, make mistakes, because you don't want to go red dot and lose your run. So don't take people who are too strong, and don't take people who are too weak either, because that'll be pressure on you. But just say like, hey, everyone around this damage, you're able to join. It's going to be practice run. If we all feel up for it, like if all of us make it to the end, we clear it. If one person dies out, you don't, for example, or, and it'll depend on the day. If it's Wednesday, maybe you're like, as long as 2 people make it, we clear it, something like that. Sure. There's a lot of options there, yeah. But again, if you're in a guild, if you're in an alliance, that'll also help, because there'll always be someone who's willing to do a boss at a certain level. If it's not their main character, it might be their second or their third character. Because with Hyperburns, a lot of people have, characters over 260 that can do quite a bit of things, but probably not solo.
Sure. Okay. In terms
you can do
of
practice mode,
the items, do you see anything? Because I have a lot of even old items that for random reasons I got to legendary potential and all, and I just kept them and all. But yeah, is there anything that feels too off? Anything that I should be paying extra attention? I already have 100% Mesa obtain on the Mesa accessories, and I have a couple of lines of drop. I even have, if you go to the drop to the main accessories, the boss accessories, you will find some drop lines. It is just because it is both my strongest and the drop one, at the same time, and then I have some others that are just that I do for drop and Mesa.
Yeah, gotcha. Pen is not transposed. Monocle was transposed at 16, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you got the purple. Honestly, I'm fine with the first kind of set to have like some drop and some mezzo on it. But once you're Yeah, like at this point, you'd want to have ideally all of your pieces be dedicated to damage or working towards that, right? Of course, if it's a hybrid, then with a line of int, then of course that's going to go into the other set. So you're kind of like in that, probably finishing up that second chapter of drop rate where you're trying to have a set that's at least like 5 and 4. So you probably have like a 5 and 6 set because you got 2 doubles, right?
Yeah.
And you want to have a set ideally of 9 or 10, right? Ideally 10, but like 9 or 10 sets of drop. This is mostly to open up the boxes and everything, so you could get more ring boxes, more backups for things, right? More dominators, more kind of treasure rings, more all of that stuff, more slime rings, more pitches, daybreaks, all of that. So
it is just that I started allocating my master resources into. I mean, I got a lot of equipments, a lot of arcane items, and all. So every time I saved up like 10 billions or so, I just use them on either the weapon or, for example, now I'm saving a little bit so I can, if I get enough pieces from Lucid to get the boots, or if I get obviously a box first, that will be better. But if not, I will need to spend some messes into that. And
yeah,
I kind of stopped the accessory upgrading because I know I can still fit in more drop, and
yeah,
I can get a way better drop gear, but I wanted to have damage first, because if I feel stuck in bosses and all, I wanted to complete arcane items and then maybe go back into accessories. Does that sound good?
There's 2 approaches there. If you're playing more irregularly, which you said in the beginning, and you feel like damage is more the bottleneck, then I can understand going for the damage first. You can actually clear the bosses, and then once you clear the bosses, you at least get some chances of the drops, and then you increase the drop after. There's more things that require, but that are benefiting from drop than just bosses, but it's also just your regular mobbing and your fragments, right? So it's would have been your familiars. You got the large drop now, but more drop rate would have also gotten you more familiars to drop, which would have gotten you the large drop rate faster, right? The familiar. And then, even there's
I'm sitting at 244, by the way, as a reference. When I'm drop kit and with the familiars out and all, I'm 244.
Yeah, so I think it's a good idea to start working that towards 300 or a little bit past 300. Of course, we have invulnerability changes coming up in Dreamer, so you don't want to work on that one right now, but that'll hopefully get you an extra invulnerability with like 20% drop. So that'll be a little bonus on top of it.
My inner ability is also something I wanted to mention, because I got buff duration plus 50% really, really fast, but I know that is not the end game of mages. You want attack speed and then 38, is it?
Yeah, 38.
On epic? I mean on unique?
Unique, yeah.
But I feel like it is just not optimal to move it right now.
No, it isn't. No. You want to save all your honor and work on it after the Dreamer update. Dreamer update will get 3 invulnerabilities, and then you'll be able to make one specifically for bossing, one specifically for mobbing, and then if it's different, one specifically for just opening the chest, so you can get a 20% drop rate always from that. A lot of that will be circulators and will be money, but then after the first line with circulators is done, a lot of that will be honor EXP, so it's just good to save up a whole lot now. Because 50% buff duration is also really good. It's worse than 38% with the extra attack speed, but not by all that much. So, like, ideally, your invulnerability right now would look something like buff, maybe buff skill duration top, and like a unique drop or mezzo, and then like an epic, whatever the other one is. Because right now you'd want to have more like hybrid invulnerabilities, because we only have one. So you have one that helps you progress through the game, and then once your money. Once your drop rate either isn't as important anymore, or your money is more coming from bossing mules, then you can divest from that and go more specifically into damage. But for right now, I think this is great, and you have 2.5 mil honor. Keep stacking on that, keep buying out honor and everything. Don't think because you have 2.5 mil you're done, because finishing one invulnerability could easily cost you somewhere from like 1.5 million to like 5 or 6 if you're unlucky. So definitely keep stacking honor for that purpose.
Okay.
But when it comes to, I would, in your case, I would prioritize the drop rate, because you got superior drops. Like, it just affects so many things in the game. I would make a full set with at least like 9 lines of, like, have at least one line of drop on all of the pieces, because I think right now you have 7, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, you have 6, so that's still 60%. That would take you up the 300% if you have 60 more. So you have 1, 2. What is it? And then what you said, like, you still have some legendary items. You could probably just use those for that, and should be pretty cheap. You have an earring, earring face, 2 rings, and then here 2 more rings. So those are done. Earring face.
I have no idea why, but I have 2 extra Kana treasure rings at sitting at 15 stars. If that helps with any valuable information, I know I can maybe use them to transfer into slimes. Or
wait, 10 stars, you mean, right?
No, 15. I have 2 with 15.
Oh, Kana treasure. Oh, Kana treasure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah, it's probably fine to have 1 leveled up there, but you have 4 drop right now, so I wouldn't work on that right now. I think you want an eye and 2 pendants to get drop on.
Okay.
Do you have any of those pieces that...
Eyes and pendants. I don't have them.
You got a unique
upgraded
pendant?
No, I have. Actually, yeah, I have Reinforce, Golux on unique.
Yeah, so that's pretty close. So got drop on that, and then you are working on. You have black beam marks, right? So right now you are not using a black beam mark, I don't think.
No.
No. Okay. Well, you should, and soon probably is trying to get a black beam mark up to 19, right? Because you've got 3 of them. And then once you have
4.
that,
I got one yesterday.
Oh, you got another one. Nice, yeah. Once you do get one with like higher for damage, you could just use another one to go for and get that one to legendary for drop. I'll probably just make 1 legendary right now for drop. If it rolls intellect, then Star Force it further. If it rolls drop, then use it for a drop piece. But it'll just also help you get more pieces, because to recenter it, to go a little bit more zoom out. You were talking in the beginning, like, what is, if are there any glaring mistakes now, or what is like my path? What is the next path? A lot of times, what is the next upgrade you're going to make is determined by how many backups you have, because that will mean that it's the least risky to invest in that first. And it's usually not, well, what happens is I can tell you, like, usually you work on Star Forcing for, CRA to 21. Why is that? Because you have a lot of backups for that. So that means it's the lowest risk, and it's most people do those bosses, so you have those pieces. It's not because CRA is, like, inherently better, right? So it comes down to...
backups,
Yeah, it comes down to, are you doing the bosses that drop the fodder? Are you doing your weeklies? But more importantly, do you have a lot of drop rate? Because if you do the bosses, if you have all the drop rate, but you only do the bosses like once a month, you're not going to have many. Or if you have no drop rate and you do them every week, you're probably going to have about as many as the other person. But if you do them every week and you have a lot of drop rate, on average, you're just going to have more pieces. And if I look at your amount of backups, like, you have a lot of Dominators. And you have a decent amount of Kana treasure rings. So those, like, after CRA, those will probably be the next things you work on. Typically, what I would like to see in someone in your situation is that you have a lot of belts. A lot of pink bean belts or a lot of reinforced belts. But you don't have those. Because you have pushed your superior belt, right? But ideally, for superior belt, the first one you make 17, and then the next one goes to 20 or to 21, with transfer hammering the fodder belts that you can get a lot of transferred in, so you don't have to risk going past 17 on the superior belt. Now, if I see a 19 superior belt, what I'm assuming from like an optimization point of view is that you have at least like 2 or 3 other superior belts in your inventory because you had backup, and that's why you went past 17. But since you don't have those, there's something different going on there. So I'm wondering, like, what was your...
forms of Oh, belts are the ones that cannot be bought now on.
No, you can buy all of them, but the belt and the earring are the ones that can drop from Helix.
Oh, okay. No, I don't have any backups. I had the coins. So when I decided to go for the belt, it was because I had some super messes during some Starforce event. I don't know if it was a Shining Starforce back then or it was just a 510 for 15, and I decided to because I also was guided by the fact that it is almost always better to catch everything up to 18 and then go to 19 and then maybe you go to 21 straight up, I think it was. But
yeah, but the problem there is that you can be time gated on backups. So when it comes to risk per meso, that is always true, right? It's always just bringing everything up 1 star at a time. But that would be if you're not factoring in the amount of backups that you have. If you have the same amount of backups for everything, then we would always just do 1 star of everything and roulette between it, and that would be the most optimal way to do it.
Sure. That is why I kept my pendant at 17.
Yeah, maybe with some prioritization based on the level of the item, because then the price and the amount of stat might not be perfectly linear with like 1-to-1, right? But the problem is the amount of backups. That is the big differentiator here. So if you have only 1 superior and you have coins, sure, you could technically risk getting the belt like you did, and it succeeded, right? But that doesn't mean it was a good decision, because it was a very risky decision. So typically for belts and earrings, you look for either, if you want to go past 17, on the item itself, it's either because you have a really, really good potential. So that means these days, basically at least 3-line, but probably like with a double prime in it or something. Because then if you do the maths on having to redo that potential on average, how much does that cost versus the riskiness of having to redo the whole item, right? Then it actually starts getting pretty close.
Can you transfer from Reinforce into Superior?
Yeah, so either Reinforced or the pink bean belts, which are the golden clover
in that
belt,
case, I do have 3 Reinforced.
Yeah,
belts.
I see some backups for that. But but 3 is, so when you're looking at like
Not
backups, well, it could be, but it's still higher in the risk assessment. So if you had right now, you have 3 belts, then I wouldn't say like, oh, that's pretty reasonably that one of those goes to 21 and then transfers into the belt and gives you a 20-star belt. That's not that reasonable. But if you look at the Dominators and you see like you have 7, like that is a lot would have to go wrong for not one of those to get to 21. So the risk there is much lower. So I would prioritize that as an upgrade because it makes more sense that you are likely that your money will produce you an upgrade. Right? So it all comes down to
into Superior Golden, right?
Into Superior Golix, yeah. And because we transfer hammer into Superior, you don't want to go too hard on your potential typically early on, because the potential gets overwritten when you transfer hammer.
Of course. And would you try to first, I mean, since I already have a Superior sitting at 17, would you try to get that to 19 first, and then for me to get to 20 or 21, use the Dominator?
Well, the problem is you'd be spending the money to get to 19 and the risk on the original item with so the coins are there as a universal backup, which is true, but you really don't want to have to use them on earrings or belts, because the earrings and belts can drop. Plus, you can transfer hammer like all you want without any risk and basically get a 20 or a 21, right? If you transfer at 21 or at 22 on the fodder with 0 risk. So why would you incur the risk if you can just spend some extra money instead and then leave the coins for when you're eventually going 21 to 22, where there is all the risk, because you cannot transfer 22 to... well, you could transfer 23 to 22, but 22 to 23 is a nightmare, right? Like, it's a 3% chance, so that's very unrealistic. So you ideally want to save your coins until that situation so that you have backups for 21 to 22. Or when you need to buy extra Superior pendants, when you're transferring either Daybreak Pendant or Dominator into Superior, and then Superior into Source of Suffering if you get that from Vihilla. That's where you have your coins. Because again, if you take this risk now, where there's other options that are way lower risk but just cost a little bit more money, you're essentially buying Meso with coins, but you want to be buying coins with Meso. Because the coins are a more limited resource here.
And for example, with the face accessory, I have my Streetwire tattoo sitting at 17. What will be the next step for that item?
It will be Twilight Mark, so that will be from Hard Lucid or Hard Will, I like the Twilight Mark a lot. I do like Twilight Mark a lot, but I like the Sweetwater tattoo a lot because it'll keep your Twilight Mark honest in the sense that, a lot of people, when you have a piece, if you immediately go to 17 and then you start investing into the flame and into the potential, you're kind of stuck on that piece, right? Because now,
because then
going past
for me
17
to replace
is
it, I will
risky.
need that bunch of backups.
Exactly,
Not
and
to
what is a
risk
bunch?
losing
For
the-
some people, maybe if you have 17, one backup is enough, right? Because even if it booms, you can go back up to 17, and then you don't really lose anything. But what if the first one goes up to 19? Do you still go if you have one, or do you go if you have 2 or 3? And what if it goes up to 21? Do you even go past 21, or do you wait until you have like 5 or 6 or 7, right?
Yeah,
That
and
is
then
like
you start
that's
using
a personal
calculators
thing.
and how adverse to risk you are.
Exactly, yeah. So I like, let's say you have a Twilight Mark, get it up to 17, and then I would just go back, like if you have the money, immediately go back to the tattoo and try to get the tattoo up to 19. If the tattoo doesn't go, you switch over to Twilight Mark, and then if you have the Slime Ring or the Daybreak Pendant later, the set bonus will help, plus it has has flame advantage, so it'll probably be a little bit better than the Twilight Tattoo already. But if the Twilight Tattoo goes to 19, now you can also risk the Twilight Mark to 19. If the Twilight Mark doesn't go, you still gain 2 stars from your tattoo, and you have a stronger piece now than you would have had if you had settled for 17. So that way you can walk up the pieces, and you're still going for 19 on something that you maybe don't have a lot of backups for directly, kind of like with the belt, but you have an alternative. So you can use the alternative as a backup, but for the belt there is no alternative because the set bonus is what gives the belt, belt is maybe a bad example because the belt is like the best piece in terms of the base stats, but still, if the belt were to fall away, the whole boss set falls away, and that's why you don't want to risk that, because you're gambling with 30 boss and 30 IED.
Okay. And for example, in terms of rerolling the potential of my badge, when would I? Because I know it is sitting on 17 forever because I'm not risking losing the badge, but the potential is decent, but it can be way better. It is still unique. So when would you readdress it?
Yeah, so there's 3 major things, right? There's the flames, there's the potentials, there's the Star Force, and all of them cost mezzo, so they're all thrown into the same pile. But events will shift the balance, just like the events shift your balance on where you spend time, right? Which character and what kind of content you do. Star Force events and upgrade events, cubing events, stuff like that. There's no flame events yet. That could also, upset things. So flames is typically something you only just work on your weapon flame, and then you just slowly work them up as you get them from events, basically, and then you min-max on them way in the end when everything else is done, right? Flames is pretty easy in that way.
That's another thing I encountered last year. If I get a couple of flames, I was also leveling my mules and all, so I would just throw them at my mules. But if I get like a couple of black flames, I know I can use them to get something better. But if I get like 5 red flames, I am often in a position where I don't want to risk using 5 random flames on my already decent or mid-game kind of decent flames and losing that, and then needing to use a lot of messes and stopping my savings or slowing them down to get that. So I
wouldn't do that.
That
last part, I wouldn't do that. So the reason that you're working on flames that are increasingly risky is because your rolls are already good, right? So you're increasing the chance that you end up with something worse than when you started. So
they're within the ranges of the progression grid.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if they're in the ranges of the progression grid, then I would say look at bossing mules and just get all of the CRA and the boss accessory pieces. Get all the CRA like 60, 65, something like that, and get the bossing mule pieces all to like 40, 45, something like that. Because it'll be very cheap, but compounding together, it'll be hundreds of stat that you get for free over there with flames that you're just getting, if it's powerful flames. But when it comes to your main character, and you're like, okay, those bossing mules are like good for now, and there's some items on the main that can still get some juice. Because I'm looking at your flames aren't like insanely good. Not to trying to shit talk you or anything, but there's definitely some. Like the glove is really good, for example, right? Like I wouldn't touch that, but the cape still can very easily gain like 50 stat. The pants a little bit, like the top can definitely be a bit better. The hat is probably fine compared to the other ones, but you have to be okay with just completely nuking one of your flames at a time and just working on it as you get flames until it hits something better than anything else, and then you just mess up the next flame. Because eventually what happens, because all of your flames are bringing up, they're all stronger, so you won't feel the difference, or if you feel it, it's just mental. But like your character is not going to get noticeably or any kind of functionally weaker just from one flame going from 50 to 0. You're just not going to feel that. It's not enough of a change. It's just a mental thing. You have to be okay with just completely blasting one of your flames and going down to 0, because you know that financially that's like where your flame should be going, and that's where it is the best choice, because it has the biggest room for improvement. And then once it does improve, now you just ruin the next one. But now you just made a better flame to carry the weight of losing the other flame for a little bit until it gets
so
restored.
now losing 50 is even less important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's an even smaller part of how strong your character is. Until you get to the point where, on average you have to use like 2,000 flames, then it probably becomes a better idea to start working on a different character again, right?
Same process on the second main, let's say.
Yeah. But yeah, just aim for those like flame advantage pieces. So that's flames, right? That's pretty straightforward. For potential, it's trickier, because you definitely want to get like WSE good. You want to get drop and meso pieces. Then you want to get you want to get your damage gear. Then you want to go back to drop and meso, I would say. So where you're at, and I would finish up the set of 9 drop. I would do that now. So like 2 pendants and one of the eye accessories. Get drop on there. And then the next thing is probably Star Force. Like, until you have
21 or something like that, right?
Yeah, 21 CRA, 20 or 21 superior, so that can depend on the drops a little bit and how much risk you're willing to take before you commit to the potential. And like 17 to maybe up to like 19 for arcanes, and everything else basically 21. And then it's like all potential. And the reason you go all potential is not necessarily because just potential is more efficient, but because you probably just ran out of all your backups. So you need more time to get more backups. So you spend your time on cubing, which is not as inefficient doing off event as Star Forcing is, to give you more time to get more backups, so that when the next event comes around and you have backups, now you can more efficiently Star Force again. So that's generally why that balance exists. But the overall question is always, what do you want your character to be able to do, right? Do you need the damage, or do you just want the damage?
Yeah, like 80% of the time I just want it.
Yeah, and that means that you could do things out of turn, or you could end up doing things more efficiently, which does mean that you're sacrificing long-term damage for short-term desired gains. But if you're okay with that, if you have the income for your account to be able to do that, then by all means, if that's fun for you, then do that.
Yeah,
but it becomes harder.
It is a matter of doing that, knowing that you're doing that.
Yeah, it becomes, if you don't do it, or if you don't have the income and you still do it, you're going to end up in a situation, and this happens to a lot of people, where you have an event and everyone's tapping, and you're like, I should be tapping because it's more beneficial now, but either you don't have any backups or you don't have enough money, and then people end up with like losing stars for an event, and then they're like, wow, I spent the last 3 months just making losses, like I'm wasting my time, right? And that's what starts happening when you don't have a long-term plan, and you're kind of just like tapping as you go, or like peer pressure, people are telling you to tap and you just go for it, and that's fun in the moment, but then in the long term you end up having to work harder for the same amount of gains, just for approaching it less tactically. So
yeah,
once you get the drop and everything there, because I don't see anything super out of place, but once you get the drop fixed.
What do you think about WSE?
Your WSE is like, it's not perfect, but it is working. And even with the ID line there, you're at the position where there are definitely still some improvements that you could make, but I would do the drop rate stuff first, then work on Star Forcing towards
21 CRA.
21 CRA and like 20 star superior with transfer hammer with fodder. I work on those 2 being done, and then maybe some other 21. So like shoulder to 20 is like up there. Black beam mark to 19 to 20 is up there. And if you have enough kind of treasures, like 1 kind of treasure ring for damage up to 21 is up there. And then the next step would usually be to like reevaluate your WSE in terms of potential. So either like a line of ID into magic attack, or at least bigger magic attack on the emblem is probably a priority. and then after that the weapon, and then based on what the emblem and the weapon roll, either also re-roll the secondary or keep the secondary. Secondary is more expensive, and is also more flexible now. So I would keep the more flexible piece and have that be like the last one you adjust, right? Like let's say that you hit, I don't know, let's say that you hit like ID and 2 magic attack on the emblem, and you hit like all magic attack on the weapon or something, let's say, then I'll probably redo the secondary because you'll have too much ID. But if you just hit like, what's more likely, like 2 lines of magic attack and like a line of stat or a line of crit or a line of like anything on the 3rd line on the emblem, and your weapon hits like a line of boss and 2 line of magic attack, or 2 lines of magic 2 line of boss and 1 line of magic attack, something like that, then your secondary can probably stay where it is.
And because with my shield and my emblem, I know I can rebuild them, but I'm obviously more afraid of going too in deep into the staff, because if I work so hard on the potential, but then I will feel bad when I try to start it up to 19 again or 20 or whatever.
Oh, you don't start. You only start if you have like a bunch of backups. So if you get another box.
Until then, this is.
Yeah, the fact that it's 18 is already like. Yeah, the fact that it's 18 is already really risky because it's really expensive to replace and you don't have any boxes. So I would always, if there's any chance, it's like if you are okay with potentially booming it, then go for it. But if you're just in any way not okay with it potentially booming, I would not even take the risk personally.
Well,
but
it was
again,
just that I had a couple. I had like at least one of those 2 extra backups I already have. I had like one of them, so I think I thought something like, okay.
Oh, you do have backups. Okay, yeah.
I can just take it up to 17 again.
Yeah, but then you trace it, right? So even if you upgrade the potential and the potential and the flame just carry over. So that's why we can work harder on that, because it'll just transfer over through the trace.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about losing that progress. It's really, that's why the intervals are kind of like, it's kind of like 17, 18, 19, but it's more like the way I look at items is 17, 19, 20 for transfer, but otherwise 21, and then eventually 22. So it's like, if it's at 17, the next jump I'm looking at is going like straight to 19. That's like the next thing I'm aiming for. You go 18 first, and then you go to 19, but that's almost always in the same event that's happening. And then from 19, the next step is typically 21, right? Because 20 to 21 is cheaper than 19 to 20 because it can't drop below 20 once it's up there. So for transferring stuff, you're basically going for 17 instead of to 19 on the piece itself, from 17 to 20 with transfer, and then immediately to 21 if you can financially and with backups if it makes sense, or you keep it at 20 for a while and then wait another event or 2 for backups, kind of thing. And the other items that were at 21, eventually 22, but 22 for most things in this game are just completely unnecessary. It's really just a min-max to try to solo faster or to try to do the hardest bosses around your level faster. But 21 gets you everywhere. If you have 21 Superior and CRA and like those other pieces I mentioned, and the 20 star other stuff, and then anywhere from 17 to 19 arcane stuff, you're going to be Black Mage ready. You just need to learn the mechanics. Like your mechanics are going to be the most important multiplier there. And then as long as your Hexa is growing and your Fee Matrix isn't a total nightmare, which yours isn't, so then you'll be fine there. It's just practice on the bosses and getting better at that.
So 2 final questions. One, in that case, would you try to tap the staff to 19?
Not right now, but that could be part of the next update. So I would just prioritize the attempts. But since you do have 2 backups, so yeah, I see drop it first, then the star forcing that we talked about. Depending on your income, that might already be like a few months, right?
Yeah.
To get that, and then there's probably and then looking at the cubing, like the potential to get your more backups. But the thing that you were saying before, like having a little bit more money lying around so that when an arcane comes around, you can immediately invest into it. Right now, that's more important, I would say, than to grab that extra Star Force on
only one
on the weapon.
Okay.
Yeah, because that extra 1 star is financially, it's going to cost you a lot more in inefficiency than switching completely from an Abso to an arcane. And
Sure.
plus, maybe then next time you come around to it and you do have the money, and you have maybe instead of 2 weapons, then you have like 5 or something. And now you can
And I
say,
can risk going even deeper if I feel like
yeah, you could go
there is
deeper,
the
or you could even turn off safeguard, right? Because then you can just it'll be more
Oh,
cost
sure.
efficient to just boom them. So then you will have bought Mezzo with time with backups, and then you can come
Of
around
course.
and make a more efficient decision there. But if you still have 2, then you can also readjust. But you gave yourself time to potentially get a better outcome, and then based
Of
on that
course.
outcome, you can make a more financially efficient decision.
Okay, and the last question is how to address my sacred power, because I'm just doing dailies and I feel like that's what I should be doing. But
Hmm.
is sacred gating a thing like arcane gating was in 2017?
Pretty much. The first 2 bosses need like, you want to be pretty close to 200 if you want to do hard Saren or any Saren, and you want to do easy Kalos. You want to be around 200. Like if you're like a strong party and you've got some practice, like 160 to 170, you might get some clears. But most people will want people who are closer to 200. So that does mean for most people that you have to unlock at least 3 areas to get to 270, and then start working on those symbols quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, if I'm struggling with the bosses I mentioned, I feel like I have time until I will need sacred to
You
worry
do.
about.
You do, but there's time gating everywhere. So the sooner you can start, the better, right? Like some people get
Yeah.
the Saren emblem really quickly. If that happens, that also means that you won't have to push as hard on your existing emblem, and you can immediately go for that one and just replace it, and that'll save you a lot of. That's one of those things where instead of a jump, you can make a whole, or instead of a step upgrade, you can make a whole jump to another piece and dedicate your money more to something that's already endgame, right? Or say you do get a pitch drop somewhere and you just try to YOLO it and it actually goes, you might be able to skip some jumps and upgrade, and then you can dedicate way more money immediately to the potential instead of having to do different pieces, star forcing, and work your way up. So, and then specifically for Kalos, because it connects to Eternal, we're going towards that. You might be like the first of that generation of people who basically never even considers getting their arcanes to 22, because by the time you get to 21, you're already going to have attempts at Eternal, and you're going to already succeed in Eternals and be switching out your other arcane pieces and stuff and your CRA for Eternals, that it doesn't even make sense to go for 22 arcanes. And the sooner you start, the more likely that you can save yourself that potential cost and already dedicate it to the upgrade that comes after the one that you're working on, kind of thing.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, there is gating, but
it
there
is
is also
definitely-
events, right? So there's quite a lot
Sure.
of boosts from events, and that first area, thank God, gives you 20 a day instead of 10, so that helps
Yeah.
level that one specifically quite a bit faster than the next one.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
just slow down.
definitely understood way more the first time. Last time when I came back and and we had the session, I needed to rewatch it like 4 times and play and then go back and rewatch it to have everything making sense in terms of order, in terms of priority, in terms of why does this take time, or why is this expensive in terms of resources and all. But
Yeah.
okay, so overall I have everything more clear. Anything you notice that I should be maybe especially because I'm worried about maybe being ignoring something that I should be paying more attention. Is there anything like that you noticed?
Well, so for my, what I would advise, and like my personality risk is like trying to risk anything that even can boom just to go for the efficiency on the individual stars. I would say like big caution. Of course, it's totally up to you, but I personally wouldn't do that or advise to do that. And I would go for like the bigger jumps with fodder instead. So the items that do need fodder,
I thought it was safer.
Yeah,
It was, yeah.
yeah, it's more efficient per mezzo, but once you boom, then it becomes way less efficient immediately, because now you're like a whole month of Gollux behind to get back. And
Of course.
when you're dealing with finite resources, there's a value that's really hard to translate into this is how many mezzos that is. Then you kind of have to look at time. How much time is that? and look at your personally, depending on how you're playing and how much time you're spending. But that's a little bit harder to grasp. So I would look for those bosses that give those fodders, so that the next event you'll give yourself more options. So like do normal pink bean, make sure maybe throw in like a normal Arcarium, right? So you can get primals. Maybe you can make Meister rings with that. That can take some pressure off of rings, for example, if you do get unlucky with that. Or it can help you start gathering rings for the next character that maybe you want to build up a little bit faster and don't have to wait for every week doing Princess No, for example. That's one thing. Since the Twilight Mark and maybe you are using dinero pieces, looking at the total amount of dineros to kind of keep track of, are you gonna get enough dinero so you can tap those things to 19?
Well, I'm not doing commerciing anymore.
Yeah, or are you just gonna leave them at 17 and then you'll all be able to use one as a fodder to walk up, right? Decide on there where you want to go. The other thing I did see is that your etc. inventory is a total mess. I would look at bigger bags, because I think you have pretty small bags, right? Because if you have that many bags and still that many pieces, I would get rid of the small bags and get some bigger bags and throw it all in there, because it looks like it can become a problem every now and then with how much space you have, and maybe put a few things into storage that are more shared between characters, just to get a little bit more control of this, because it can be a little bit
I'm needing to sell when I'm bossing, and I need to stop and sell and continue.
Yeah, you're getting into the overtime with the space there is all the way at the bottom right, so there's probably some just take the things out of the small bags and get rid of them. For 50 mil you can get 20 slot bags, so that'll immediately make a whole bunch of space in there. And if you have full stacks of stuff, like the small spell essences and stuff, if you just have one stack of that, it's fine. You can get rid of the rest, or you can just put them on a mule somewhere, so that if you do need some, you can just go grab those. But that's a very minor thing, of course. Storage, is there anything here that can? No, it seems like you're using your items. Oh yeah, see, you have you have the Rocks of Time in your storage and also in your inventory. So I would, the thing I like to do is whenever I do bosses or something like that for a while, is just to clean up the character before I log off. So just okay, this thing gets NPC, these things get extracted, and then the rest gets dumped into storage, and then boom, I move on to the next character. It takes a little bit extra time per character, but it does mean that at any time I can look at my storage and I know what I have. I know how much money I have, I know how many resources I have, I know, or I know where it is,
and doing it last before you log off is something I remember a session or a stream or something back then that you gave a really nice analogy, which is cleaning your house before you go into vacation instead of coming back and having everything messed up.
Yeah, just be coming back to a shit show. It just doesn't feel good. Yeah, but if you come back to a character and it's cleaned up and you can immediately start doing what you need to do. If you come back and it's oh, I need to boss now, but my whole inventory is full, so even if I get something, I can't loot it. So now I have to start with extracting, and maybe you're already running late, and your party is waiting for you. It's not a good. So I like to always, clean up the character afterwards. That same analogy was on the tip of my tongue, but you already got there, so that's good. I would put some extra elbow grease probably into Legion. Definitely get into that 6k and get past that. That'll give you a lot more breathing room there. But yeah, if you're feeling with the bosses and everything, because it's one thing to really make sure that your gear is good. There's nothing horrible here. Your stats there and everything, but it does ultimately come down to how do you use the stat, how do you use your character. So maybe Ice Lightning Discord has got some bossing tips specifically, but I would just go in and practice. If you say take a half hour, take an hour, just do a bunch of practice runs and just die a bunch of times and just figure out what kills you, what doesn't kill you, and just try, because confidence is big, right? And you can't really get that unless from experience. So
yeah, that happened to me when entering to Lucid back then. On when I quit it first, Lucid was the final boss, I think, and it was scary, so I didn't want to go into Lucid, and now I just do the hard parties. I even look for parties that are trying to rush it, because I now have the damage and I know the mechanics and I know I can take the damage out, and now it is a small boss in my mind.
Yeah, they do change position a lot, because if you look at the boss grid and you look at all the bosses, there's many more that are listed after
Yeah.
Hard Lucid, where in the past, there were maybe like a few bosses behind it, and now Hard Lucid is here, and then there's a whole lot more that comes after that in terms
Not
of
even
difficulty.
halfway, I think.
Well, if you're looking at like progression, right, like where in the game you are, like Hard Lucid is kind of like the end of early game, basically, right? Like when you're going into mid game is when you start going into Tenebris and that kind of stuff. You do a Hard Lotus, Hard Damien. That's kind of when that starts, which is typically in a smaller party. Like the boss by itself, Hard Lotus and Hard Damien are easier, of course, by a lot than Hard Lucid. But you do full man for Hard Lucid and Hard Will, and then you go for smaller parties typically for those bosses, so you don't have to share the Mezzo with as many people and share the pitch bosses with as many people. But if there's a week where you're like, oh, I didn't really get to it, but I still want a chance for a ring box, right? Don't underestimate those, because those can make a really big impact on your damage output. It'd be like, oh, I'm just going to join this fast run and blow it up. Maybe the crystal is going to be garbage, but I'll get a chance for a ring box. That in itself will be more valuable than what the crystal would have been most of the time.
Is Hard Lomian party even good? Or should I just keep doing the normal and getting the crystal, selling it, and getting the message from it?
I'm a big proponent of finding like a duo or trio party for that pretty quickly. Because if you could do normal very quickly, there's probably tons of people out there that are in the same position that can do normal very quickly, or could probably do hard, but it takes forever. And they'd rather like duo or trio hard, even if it is a little bit less meso, but you have chance of pitched and better ring box chance and all that. So, but that's another thing that a guild can help a lot with, right? Be connected with people like that more easily. So, it does a lot of it comes down back to that, or set up for boss parties and look at which people you partied with that were, that seemed like cool people to play with, and then add them to your buddy list, and then see if you can set up a weekly thing, something like that.
All right. Okay. Perfect. Thank you a lot.
Yep, you're very welcome. You were very organized with your questions and with going through the conversation, so that's very helpful. I thank you for that as well.
I'm making up for the first time.
Well, I don't remember from everyone all the sessions, so it could have been horrible. Sure. But I will never. I don't have like a note that says like, oh, Proto's rambling all over the place or something. I don't keep anything like that, because
the first time I was like, what's the game? What are the systems? Link skills, what's that?
Yeah, we probably just went very much to basics, yeah. But whenever there's a session, I really like, it goes all into my head, and then like I know all the things, and if you ask me like a specific piece, I can probably roughly tell you what your stats are on there. But if you ask me that in like an hour, it's all gone again, because I can't keep it in and then do another session and then mix up the information. It would be a nightmare to be like, oh no, that was the last guy. Like I can't have that. So I have to like take it all in and then just let it all go immediately. So sometimes people are like, oh yeah, the session was so great last week. And I was like, I already don't remember what class you are. But like, it's not because I don't personally care about your progress. I can't do that, or my brain will just just go haywire.
I feel you. It is the same for me when coaching TFT. So
yeah, exactly. Like you can't think about like, oh yeah, I'm saving this character, and then there's like, oh no, wait, that was the last game, and then there goes all your gold, right? It's you have to have a specific new strategy, wipe the slate clean, start over.
Cool.
Okay. Well, best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'll see you around.
Sure thing.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okie dokie. So hopefully there was some stuff in here that was helpful for you guys if you watched it. If you watched all the way to the end, hopefully it was even entertaining, maybe a little bit secretly. If there's anything that we talked about that you feel was maybe not 100% gone into depth with, or you still have remaining questions, feel free to leave them down below. And if you just want to look at some things in your own time, maybe some of the commands that we went through, some of the information that we checked out, feel free to use my Twitch chat over there on the top left. You can also join us when I am live, and you can be there for these sessions. And you can just shitpost in the chat while the session's going on. Sometimes say something helpful, sometimes just pepper point at me. But yeah, I stream every day, so if you need help, feel free to come on down, use the commands. Those are free for everyone to use. And there's many, many more, few hundred more, with information that you can use on your own time. And you can ask anytime if you have additional questions. I do these sessions for people who request them through donations, but also for subscribers. And also, there's a chance to win these for free if you leave a comment saying that you would like to win one of these and you include your Discord name. It is now May, so I will be drawing the winners for April soon. 2 winners every month that will have a chance of getting these sessions for free. So if you're interested in that, please leave a comment saying that you would like to win. That being said, check any of the other videos here that you could just watch for free, or catch me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Scardor. I'll see you there, or on the next video. Thanks for watching.